Hello YouTube! Okay, so I meant to do a nice small piece this week, but things have sort of spiraled out of control, and now instead I'm working on this full color, full body piece with a complicated background. So, instead of making it exactly like my usual videos, I'm going to try something a little bit new, and I'm going to split up this process into two videos. So this video here is going to cover the sketch through the finished line art, and then later, if I'm finishing this piece, I'll show the coloring and shading stages. Basically, the reason for this is it'll let me keep the speed up at a reasonable level while also keeping the size of the video down to something sensible. This video covers about 2 hours of drawing work, and it's sped up 16 times normal speed. And as you can see, the video is already something like 8 minutes. So if I did the whole thing, which will probably take another 2 to 4 hours, I'm either going to get a 30-minute video, which seems a little bit long, or I'm going to have to speed everything up to about 30 or more times its regular speed, which is what I've done with previous big full color pieces, which I find makes it a little bit hard to actually get anything out of the follow along the art process and learn it much from the video. So if you have any opinions on what I should do the next time I'm doing a big piece like this, if I should do this kind of new format, or if I should stick to what I was doing before and just speed things up, or if you'd be okay with a slowed down but 30-minute video, please let me know in the comments. This channel is basically still starting out, so I'd really love feedback on what's working for you and what I should be changing in the future. So about this piece. As you may or may not know, I am a huge tabletop role-playing game nerd. I play them, I write them, I run them, and I basically just love them to bits. They're my favorite hobby, possibly aside from drawing. So for the last year or so, I've been playing in an ongoing campaign that's using Onyx Path's Exalted 3rd Edition rules and setting. And I've drawn my character a bunch of times. I think there's a couple pictures of her on this channel, but this is actually one of the other player characters. A few sessions ago, my character built this cool robotic prosthetic arm thing that she's wearing, and I had a lot of ideas about how I wanted it to look. So I finally decided to sit down and do a quick illustration of this other character's new design with some input from their player. And then I kind of got caught up on the action pose, and I remembered that our next session's supposed to be this fight in a cool ancient city in this like snow-covered region of the world, and things kind of spiraled out of control, and now I've got this big, full, fancy picture. I think I've gone over my sort of cheating perspective ruler trick in another video, or at least sort of skimmed on it, but basically the pink lines you're seeing in the background here are a line work vector layer I always create when I'm using Paint Tool Sci to draw something that's going to require a lot of perspective work, so massive quantities of buildings like this. I'm not going to go over too much detail on exactly what I'm doing with that here, just because you can't really see it that clearly, but if you do want to know more about how that's done, please let me know in the comments and ask me any questions you've got about the technique, and I'd certainly be happy to do a tutorial on that in the future. So style-wise, I tried to lean more towards a kind of anime look for this piece because the character's player had a lot of sort of anime style references in mind for her look. So that meant I was trying to keep to more like a thinner lines, more animated style of look, and also kind of lean more heavily into the anime features. I'm not really sure how well I succeeded at this. It's been a while since I've really had a super anime style, but it was interesting to try and reference that kind of thing and try and go back to copying more of that look. So the character design here is kind of a mashup between the anime style reference images I got, some saved references I pulled, and then some of my own random ideas thrown in. I especially put in a lot of my own ideas around the robot arm itself, both because my character was the one who made it, so there's kind of had more of my influence there, and also because I really like designing robot parts that take a lot of inspiration from ball-jointed dolls for that kind of elegant, sort of semi-organic, semi-mechanical kind of feel. So yeah, I spent a lot of time trying to get that sort of look, and I'm hoping to add more details to that area when I get to doing colors. The pose and design I chose were also a really good excuse to make myself kind of buckle down and really try at drawing a hand. I still find hands to be something I struggle with immensely, so forcing myself to actually go in and do them in detail and show all the jointing and all the parts was probably practice that I really need more of. So speaking of practice, I do think that I am getting better and faster at doing big, complicated backgrounds like this. I really love the look of a finished piece with a complicated background, but I do tend to find them very hard work. But because I like the finished product, I've been pushing myself to do more and more of them lately, and in pieces like this, I'm really starting to feel like maybe it's starting to pay off. So I'm finally getting to a place where a background with a perspective grid isn't really a big deal for me anymore, it's just kind of something I do. And as the process is becoming more routine, I'm getting more practice, and therefore it's getting a little bit faster. So I was really pleasantly surprised by how quickly I was able to put this background idea together, how it came together into something that looked really coherent, and then how much quality I was able to get out of that quick sketch that I had without really planning things out in advance. So obviously there's still a lot more work to do. I'd really like to make my backgrounds a lot smoother, especially getting better at drawing really organic shapes in perspective, but I'm still really pleased with the progress I've made even in the last year, year and a half. So I guess the moral of the story is if there's something you really want to be able to draw, you've just got to keep drawing it. You've got to let yourself draw it kind of poorly or let yourself have to take a billion years to draw it, but then you can improve every time you're going at it, and eventually you'll be drawing it fairly quickly and pretty okay. So I think one of the reasons for my improved speed is the fact that I'm starting to build up a mental library of what buildings look like. When you draw something a lot, especially when you're using references to do those drawings, you start to build up a kind of mental reference for those images that you're drawing. It's often talked about regarding human anatomy, that's why a lot of people do life drawing very regularly, but it works basically the same way for learning anything else. So if you're drawing a lot of buildings, and then you're also really observing how buildings work when you're just walking around, you start to improve your mental image of what a building looks like, so it includes more detail and accuracy, and then eventually you learn how to spill those details out back onto a page from your imagination in a way that's both original but also accurate to how buildings actually kind of work. One of the things you can see me doing as I'm inking the background is making a lot of kind of little changes to the sketch I've made in the back. Sometimes it's just because I don't think the sketch in the back was very clear, or I come up with better ideas for how I want to do the details, but sometimes it's also because now that I'm in the inking stage, the sketch in the background is interacting in weird ways with the figure in the foreground. There's a concept in art called tangents, which is basically when two lines in separate parts of your picture interact in a way that suggests they might have a relationship that's not the one you intend to convey. So like when a background line is perfectly parallel or perfectly up against a foreground line, it can kind of make the picture seem flat, as if those two lines are supposed to be interacting when they're supposed to be miles and miles away. So often when I'm inking a picture with a complicated foreground figure and also a complicated background, I've got to make little tiny tweaks and adjustments to the background as I go to keep it from looking weird with the foreground. So yeah, that's about it for this piece, at least for the line art, which is basically finished now. If you've got any questions or comments, please, as always, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope I'll see you on my next video.